back, everyone, to another episode of Sisto Says, powered by Design 2147, a New York City building and code consulting company in the Big Apple. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Greg Wolf from Greg Wolf Construction Corp. He's the president of the company and founder. Greg, it's been a long
Greg,
time, but I finally got you on the show.
hold on. I got to hit you on that one. It's Wolf Construction, not Greg Wolf
Oh,
Construction.
okay. We'll start over.
That's
All
the
right,
name
guys, take it from the top again. Sorry about that. I wrote down Greg Wolf of Wolf Construction. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sisto Says, powered by Design 2147, a New York City building and code consulting firm located here in New York City in the Big Apple. Today, I have Greg Wolf of Wolf Construction Corp, president. Welcome aboard, Greg. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing great. Doing great. So, Greg, after you badgering me and begging me to come on my show, I finally I finally got you.
You kidding?
You've convinced me to have you on. So, but all kidding aside,
I'll be on my best
Greg
behavior.
is a yeah. I hope so. I hope so. And you will. Uh, Honestly, Greg has been a good friend to me for a long time. We met probably about 12 or 13 years ago through a mutual friend who is a mentor of mine, Bill Harding, who has now passed away. He was one of the founders of Humphreys and Harding. Uh, Basically, when I was in college and my early construction years, Bill taught me a lot about how to build, how to deal with people. He was a great people person. I know he's a mentor of yours as well, Greg. So that's how Greg and I met, and through Bill, we've we've done a lot of work together, but we've also bonded deeply as friends. And Greg, I say that openly on my show that you are a dear friend to me, and I look forward to our once a month calls. I look forward to us getting together for a cup of espresso and you making believe you could speak Italian.
Ah,
Um, but 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 it's awesome. So Greg, welcome aboard. Um, so here you are. You grew up in a family that was always in the construction world, and lo and behold, you started Wolf Construction. Tell us a little bit about the journey. Um, we'd love to hear it.
it's been, I guess, a wild journey for me. I guess first and foremost, I come from one of the oldest construction family lineages in New York City. Um, my family's been in the business for over 120 years. I'm fourth generation.
Wow.
I basically grew up on a job site, touring it as a little kid with my grandfather and my father, and I didn't originally want to jump into the business straight off the bat. I followed other passions.
Like riding a bike through
Like
Europe.
riding a bike, yeah, it was national caliber cyclist turned professional cyclist. Lived in Europe for 6 years plus, and decided at a certain point. Actually, I was working one off season. I decided to work as a laborer just to do something hard, try to clear the mind, and I really enjoyed it and kind of caught the bug for it. And so as my career was winding down in cycling, I started to wind up my foray into the construction business, and it was definitely a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's funny. One of the questions I always ask my guests, and a lot of them have a very similar pattern. So I had asked one of my guests recently. So when you were a kid, did you just know you were going to sell furniture? She said, "No way, no way." And I'm sure that your whole family was in construction, but probably in the back of your mind you were saying to yourself, "Well, I don't want to go into construction. I want to do my own thing." And then lo and behold, a summer comes. You work with your family, you do some hard labor, and you go, "Wow, this isn't so bad. I kind of like it." And here you are now. You're running a construction
Yeah,
company.
I mean,
So
I remember my grandfather went crazy when I told him that I wasn't going into the business at first. Uh,
yeah,
but it's the path I need to follow, and my dad was never one to push me into the business. You have to want to do it, and really have the fire and passion for it. And I like to build. I've always liked going around to job sites, even when I was younger, and figuring things out and trying to come out with a product that you really can be proud of. And you know, I mean, working for my dad when I was a super and assistant super. I mean, he was one tough SOB, especially when it came to quality of work and perfection and not accepting punch lists. I mean, he really drilled down. He would check the screws on the hinges to make sure everything was in there. But it set a precedent that you need to provide a good product for the client because there's always somebody else out there.
Right. And so Greg, you're just, everyone says, oh, they're general contractors, but like us, even in the code consulting and the entitlement world, uh, we we all have a niche, right?
Yeah,
We've all done things. So back in the day when I first started, 40 years ago, I did a lot of work for your dad. Uh, we did a lot of schools. He he and his partner were known in the industry to do office work, education work, um, and most of the stuff we did were rehabs. I don't remember us doing much new building together, but they were always complicated,
yeah.
and they were difficult. And it seems that your office has followed in those footsteps as well. So um, one of the reasons I had asked you to come on the show is that there's always this constant question out there when I'm doing my BD stuff and you're doing yours is, so what's the New York City office market like? What's the office world like? What's the lower ed education, uh, private or public like? So um, tell us a little bit about. I know we do work together. We help you with certain projects. But back in the day, you used to always call me, "Hey, we're looking at a job. What kind of permits do I need? I got to work after hours. We're gonna redo a lobby. We're gonna redo corridors in an office space." And there was a lot of that kind of upgrading for Class B, Class C to just keep their tenants happy. So, what's the market like? What are they building these days? What are you seeing? And really, what are you guys uh, going after right now?
I guess it's changed a bit since I left my family's firm and started up the new firm 7 years ago now, almost. Where before it was a lot more of the corporate interiors. Yeah, the educational work, like you said, but and the smaller scale, additions. I would say not new construction. But yeah, it was always complicated work. I think my dad kind of, you know, he really enjoyed doing those complicated, tough projects, and so that was the type of work that he always liked to chase. Um, with the group we have now, it's really a mix of different ability levels. We have some people that have come from Turner, from Tishman, on both the interior side and the core and shell side. So, you know, whereas we still do quite a bit of interior fit outs, both for the landlords and for the architects, owners, reps. We also do a lot of institutional work with museums and schools, and smaller scale, complicated core and shell work, um, where really it's different now because we're somewhat of a new kid on the block, I guess you say. I
Yeah.
mean, uh, you know, a lot of our clients are clients that have been around for a while, and actually probably about 90% of our business is repeat business. So
And a lot of these buildings, where are they investing their money? Is it in, is it in amenity spaces? Is it in the lobbies? Is it in the, you know, obviously if a new tenant comes in and you're building it for them, that's clearly an office fit out. But um, we know that the A market is always strong. The Class A office market is always super duper here in New York. But there's millions and millions of square feet of Class
and,
B and Class C.
and that's the biggest problem right now is you have. I mean, there's been a big surge the past 2-3 years with law firms looking for new space, and you fill a lot of the new buildings that have gone up have filled up immediately, and
The Class A's.
yeah, Class A's, and the rent is, it's mind blowing what some of these companies are paying. Um, but like you said, that now you've got the B class properties that could be in a good area, but they're the 1920s, 30s type buildings, and how do the owners, convince tenants to come to their building? Um,
Right.
and the Class B buildings it's not like years ago where it would be a lot less expensive. They're expensive now.
Right. It's it's not like you're getting these. So it's not like they know they're competing and they don't have an A product, but their prices aren't that far off.
Yeah, and you do see a lot of investment from the owners where they're, and certain people hesitate at first, but trying to do anything that can sell somebody to their space, amenities, and whatever keeps the worker in the office. That's what they're looking for. It's something to incentivize the worker to want to
To
be there
come in.
more. Yeah, you know. So, and then you're always doing the basic, you know, bathroom corridor upgrades and in buildings, and a lobby gets done once every 20 years or so, depending on the owner. But they're really trying to do stuff to sell the space, rooftops, and you know,
Right.
putting having coffee bars and barbecues, um, in some places. So it's really just to
Yeah, I
push the
that that you hit on a point that we talked about in another previous show that I recorded, which was um, how the office space now is more about the the employee being able to say, I want to sit at a bench and work next to my colleague. It's about having their own office if they need privacy, and then having a private workspace. We called them phone booths back in the day, but to make a private call or to do certain things. So the design of the spaces has changed. Um, how do you see the demand in terms of RFPs for your office? Do you see a lot of them flowing through? I mean, it seems that from what I hear on the street is that there's work out there, but there's also a lot of people bidding small little projects where before there used to be two or three people, now there's eight or nine people, and it that's changed as well because it sounds like the supply and demand is not as high as it once was.
Yeah, it's really inconsistent, and we've seen it since COVID, where you're in estimating either you're out of control busy or you're quiet, and it just keeps going with the ebbs and
Right.
flows of the market. And like you said, there is work out there, but it's turned into a sense a race to the bottom. So it's you know really being able to know when it's worth chasing and when you just need to walk away and say,
Yeah, I mean, Greg, you bring out a great point. Even in our business, even with other people that I interview, it seems that everyone was ready to feel like they were going to turn a switch on, uh, and work was just going to fly all over the place. What other sectors are you working on besides offices and education?
museums.
You're doing some retail, right?
A little bit of retail. We don't do too much of it because just the opportunities haven't imposed themselves, but we have done it. We know how to do it. It's just
Okay.
you know
All right, so we'll go into a little bit about other sectors, and then we'll get into the forecasting.
okay.
All right. So Greg, these days, obviously, your bread and butter has been the office world, whether it's a fit out or amenity upgrade, landlord upgrades. Um, Obviously, when you're in that world, it always branches off into the retail world. For us, we do quite a bit of retail. Um, what do you, what's your hunch on the retail? People are saying that retail is back. Um, I think it's back, but I think it's back in a different way. The spaces aren't as big; they're more boutique. They're different. they're different types of retail versus what we're normally used to franchises coming in or big box stores.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing with your landlords that have these buildings and they have these smaller retail space? What are they looking to do with them and pivot them to get them rented?
I definitely think there's the push towards the, like you said, the boutique type stores. There, any, like you said, amenity to get somebody through the doors.
Right.
That's their biggest thing right now, is to get them through the doors. And once that happens, then hopefully something else catches their eye, and pushes them towards that product. I mean, you see banks even. There's a bank on 34th and 6th Avenue that has a coffee shop in it. Who would have
Yeah,
ever
I
thought?
just, I just, it's funny that you brought that up.
Yeah.
I stopped there. You talking about the TD Bank one?
Is it TD? It's either TD or Capital on or one of those two.
No, no, it's Capital One. You're right.
And
Capital One.
it's wild.
A colleague asked me to have a cup of coffee with her,
Yeah.
and we stopped. She said, "Meet me there," and I was like, "This is a bank. There's no coffee shop." And I went around it, not knowing that it was actually a coffee shop
Yeah, it's wild.
that had the Capital One brand on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a great point. That how did Capital One get into the coffee business? But it's not about the coffee. They were trying to promote, a credit card or some type of loan, a home loan or an equity or
Yeah.
a refi. But that was a way to get people to do their brand recognition via a walking off the street in Manhattan as a coffee shop. It was a great concept.
Yeah, and I think that, the amenities stuff has always been around in one facet or another. It's a question of, well, one, I think the landlords now are taking it upon themselves to build these spaces out, um, to what is the popular thing of the times. But I mean, you always used to have the coffee shop and the shoe shine and
Right, and
a
the
barber shop
deli.
in the basement of the building. I mean, Chrysler Building used to be like that, or the Lincoln Building, Empire State Building. They all had stuff like that. Now, it's okay. Let's build a gym. Let's put a restaurant in there. Let's build basketball courts. Let's have golf simulators. Anything
Right.
to keep people around and keep them in the building.
Yeah. So so here we are. We're in 2025. You've been on your own now for 7 years. You have some you have some really good young people that are your partners that are working hard.
Yeah,
Um, and obviously you guys are doing pretty well. Um, Andrew Peters, who I've introduced you to him, dear friend of mine, great guy.
good guy. Yeah,
Um, and Andrew always was in the estimating world.
yeah,
Before there was a set of drawings, he'd have to tell somebody it's going to cost them $15 million,
yeah.
and they have no idea what they're getting for $15 million.
Right.
But that was his job, right? He'd have to give them a prediction. So he was in the prediction world, and Andrew always says that his thing is you have to look through the windshield, not the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
We always have to look ahead. So here we are, 7 years in the business. Your honeymoon is over. You're pushing away. Uh, what do you think the where do you think the office market is going to go in 2026? And what do you think potentially could be some changes? And obviously, Greg, this is um, it's a prediction. It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
a gut feeling. Yeah, no one's going to hold you accountable to it. But what's your sense? What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, the biggest concern I see is people thinking that they can get something for nothing, and you see it with the bidding process where the design teams aren't allowed enough time to put together a decent set of documents. It gets to the contractors who, if it's a lump sum bid, you have to price it that way,
Right.
and then you know it might not be buildable the way that it is on paper. And then you get into the questions of what's a change order, why is there a change order, um, and people have to be honest with themselves and say, hey, guys, guess what? If we do a better set of documents, the cost is going to be what it's going to be. Uh,
Correct.
yeah, you can hide behind it and say, oh, we issued this, and oh, we're 20% below budget, and then at the end of the day, they're 35% above budget. Yeah,
Right. And there's an adage to that that I always have, which I've done in my own personal life when it comes to building things, is I always say speed kills.
yeah,
Because although it feels good to get started, but when you can't, when even in our world, when people ask us for quotes and they're like, well, we're not sure if it's going to be one application, we're not sure if it's going to be three applications, but I only want to spend X.
right,
Well, wait a second. You just went from one to three. You
right.
can't spend the same, right? So I agree with you that that is definitely something that we hear a lot of, Greg, just from me interviewing people, and you know me, I'm always out talking to people, getting people's vibes that there's a lot of things that comes out way too premature.
Hmm.
Uh, the plans aren't up to date. The concept is there, but the path isn't there, and it it throws the cost of these jobs all over the map, and you wonder how one person's 20% less and one person's 30% higher. How do you have a 50% spread? And it's because there is confusion somewhere.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Is years ago, and I remember my dad always talking about that. The owners used to, let's say they had five bidders on a project. You throw out the bottom number, you throw out the top number, and the three in the middle were the ones that you were speaking with, and it allowed for hopefully the mistakes that the low guy had being picked up. Um,
Right.
there's always
But
a
that's not sustainable.
no. I mean, it's there's never enough time that's put towards the projects. We know that, and the question mark always is, who's going to be able to do it, get it completed on time, within budget, and with the least amount of headaches.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, that's always the goal,
yeah,
right?
and I mean, but you know, yeah, I always take a step back and think about this. So, what's the most successful building in the world ever to be built? It's the Empire State Building. Why? They built the thing in 13 months. Okay,
It's
soup
crazy.
to nuts. Yeah, but if you ever look, there's actually a really good book about it. If you ever look back to all the planning that went into it, I mean, they had everything so dialed in that literally the steel was rolling out of the mills, and they had the data, it was going to be there, and it was there. And
And that's way before AI was around.
yeah, but
There was no BIM.
no,
There was no BIM. There was no AI.
no, you had hard-headed construction managers, and that's really what they were. And
Right.
they knew how to build, but they knew how to manage. And yes, you had the influx because of the depression of workers, but still, to build that thing uh, in that speed is unheard of now. You're lucky if you get out of the ground in 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Well, Greg, you know what? We have a lot of optimism.
I
We've
hope
been,
so.
you started a business right when COVID hit.
Oh yeah,
So kudos to you that you've been able to survive that. Um, I think some good changes are coming. I do believe that the office market is changing. It's evolving.
yeah,
Um, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for everybody. But I'm always an optimistic person. I
you
always
have to
feel that
be.
I always try to look at the positive,
Yeah,
because if everybody who came on the show only gave us the negative, we wouldn't have a show because nobody would tune in.
yeah, that's,
We'd make everybody sad. So, but at the same time, I like to get the feeling of the people that are people like yourself that are in the trenches every day. Um, that you're not backed by some big private equity firm. It's
mhm.
it's it's yourself and your partners, and you guys work hard to do what you need to do, to make a living. And I appreciate every second that you take away from your business to give it to me for roughly a half hour. I know we're all busy, but it's important. And as I said at the beginning of the show, Greg, not only are you a colleague, but you've been a really good friend to me. So I appreciate
Same
that.
here. Thanks.
I look forward to putting your to spending more time with you in the future,
See you again.
and I think positive things are going to happen this year.
Thanks. I appreciate it, and it's been a good run, a long run, but a good run.
That's right. We got more to
And like
go.
you said, you can view the negative side, but you just have to keep pushing forward. And
Exactly. You got to find a silver lining in
yeah,
everything.
and, otherwise,
Well, Greg, until we have you back in next year, if you twist my arm hard enough. But thank you again for taking time out. I appreciate it.
sounds good. Thank you, Sisto. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.